Hi Siddharth, good evening. How are you?
Good evening, sir. I'm good, sir. How about you?
Yeah, I'm also good, Siddharth. Nice talking to you after a long time. I mean, after you left Afpa, I only got messages from you saying that you got recommended.
Yes, sir.
So, Siddharth, would you like to, play back your journey as to how did this thought come to your mind and what made you decide to join the NDA and how did you prepare and how many attempts did you have and all that, etc.
Sure, sir. I mean, it goes on. It goes a long way back in general. In the sense, I've always been into something military-wise. I've read a lot about World War II and about the Intifada of the Palestinians, the Syrian war, and everything. So it was somewhere military-wise that I thought was I guess the job profession which would suit me in general. But where National Defense Academy actually came into, the fore was when I had a conversation with my father back in ninth standard, 10th standard. We were deciding what to do after 10th. And we just researched as to, different entries into the forces in general and, came across the National Defense Academy. And that's where things started. I started, doing a lot more research into the Indian Army, more specific into the Indian forces in general. Started reading books, started reading about, the wars that we participated in, the Paramveer Chakra awardees and everything. And that's where I started having this brimming passion within me that I constantly, transpired into others as well. And that's how it's all started. And so the first attempt I gave was the NDA 146th course. It was the 146th, 145th, and 146th was the combined course. So it was just one exam. So I cleared both writtens, but I wasn't eligible for the 145th course. So with absolute no preparation, I went for my 146th SSB, and I got screened out. So the thing was that in my PPT story, it was more or less like a library kind of scene. So as I said, the first thing that I did was I wrote something based on World War II. I wrote about a Nazi Gestapo officer who is a double agent and a part of actually British MI5. He's been doing a lot of operations in the north of Normandy and Cayenne and everything around D-Day and everything. So it was a proper movie script in general.
So, a story, this was your story for a library kind of a scene, huh?
Yes, sir. It was more like a library kind of scene. There was a bench in the middle, and there were people surrounding it. So, so I assumed it to be a map on the table. So the first thing that hit me was some kind of pinpointing some locations to get the agents back off French soil. So, so that's what I wrote. I went and narrated with absolute confidence. And things that when you narrate, you can see that, when others, the expressions that they give. So when others narrate, you can see that I guess the ambience was more or less okay. Yeah, I'm listening. But then when I gave my story, everybody was starstruck. They didn't know what I was talking about. It was absolute confusion. And then the group discussion took place. I dominated it unnecessarily. I think that would be the better word. And then the unfortunate result of getting screened out happened. Then 147th course, again without a lot of preparation, I went again. But this time I wrote a lot more mellow of a story during my PPDT. And then luckily I got screened in. But then there were quite a few areas where I felt I absolutely lacked, which got me conferenced out in the 147th course. Certain qualities which were very clear, very conspicuous as well. In a sense, for example, during GD, this is one of the negative points I gave during my 148th course as well, that I'm extremely, in the sense, the competitive nature within me kicks in for every single thing that takes place. So irrespective of whatever it is, even if it is the most silliest of games, I have to make sure I win. That kicks in for me in in every single thing that I do. So the group discussion as well, I dominated left, right, center. I tried to pinpoint things that were wrong in everybody else. So that's where I think, in general, I made quite a few mistakes. Progressive group task as well, sir. That's where you came into the fore, and that's where you helped me big time. Progressive group task, I was mute. If this is the GD, this is my volume during PGT. I did not open my mouth because I did not know what was going on in general, because I had not made it past the stage 1 in 146th course. So that was again, and then my interview went extremely well. I felt my interview went well. The officer and I would say bonded. He asked me questions that pretty deep in, in observational nature in general. So 147th did not go my way. I got conference out for that. Then TS 46th course, I got screened in. God knows how again. I think TS screen is more or less like a lottery in general. Around 300 and something reported, and 23 of us got screened in. So that was, that was pretty surprising. But then again, I did not have, I guess, the experience to transcend from my 147th course to TS 46. So the same performance carried on to the next thing. There was not a lot of difference. My PGT and everything, it was almost the same. GPU, I absolutely dominated it without any consideration for others. So again, that was a rejection. And then that's when I came to user for the 148th course. And that's where I guess I was certain negatives of mine were pinpointed, but the positives as well were given a glimmer of, recognition in general. So with the confluence of both, the way you helped us in identifying the negatives, gave us space and the opportunity to work on them, gave us also certain tutorials on, take for example, the PGT in general, and group discussion, constant, recurring practices of the group discussions. It helped a lot. And then finally, the 140th course, I made it. So.
I remember even I used to point it out to you that over participation. I
Yes.
remember, and I used to also tell you that please don't think that English is going to carry you through.
Yes, sir.
I remember I told you this somewhere near
Yes.
the mess.
The last day.
So don't think that English will carry you through. English is good, but that's not the only thing that will carry you through. It is the test of your behavior.
Yes, sir.
But that brings me to the point which I will remind you now, and I'll take a confirmation from you whether what I say is right or wrong.
Right, sir.
If you are sensitized, if you are pointed out, and if you are conscious about a certain weaknesses that you inherently have, most of the time we don't even realize that this is this is going to cause a problem for me, or this kind of a behavior is not good in a
Right.
team. So once it is pointed out to you, you subconsciously and consciously you tend to change yourself.
Yes,
Did
sir.
that happen to you? Did that really happen to you?
It did actually happen to me, sir. Luckily, I had the right group of friends as well around me at Afpa, who did curate for this improvement of mine over the past, the next 14 days that happened. And yes, sir, 100%, I would agree that subconsciously and consciously, I mean, again, if you are agreeing to the fact that there are inherent defects within your, I would say, personality in general, as a team man, then if you do actually feel that there are negatives, then I feel it is, automatically it kicks in that you start improving as a person, because you yourself will start feeling conscious that, okay, this is not right. I have to be better in general. But sir, I feel, again, the college that I go to, I know quite a few people who, again, I don't know if this applies to the SSB or the people who are going for the SSB, but I know quite a few people in my college who feel, that there's nothing wrong with them, that everything is perfect with them. And I feel like, they feel that if you point out something wrong within them, this sense of ego flares up within them, and a lot of other things kicks in. So I think, like you said, sir, I think it takes a certain extent of maturity, I would say, to accept that you do have certain, defects in as a personality, and to work on them. It's not an individualistic task. It is a group activity. You do need people around you to, first of all, point out the defects that you have, and on top of that, also to guide you in general in the places, like pinpoint in certain areas. Like, say, for example, I'm talking to my friends, some random conversation, and then I'm clearly, dominating it, or I'm clearly, putting down the rest. So I had friends in Afpa who helped me out in that way to, pinpoint in certain areas. So if you want to improve, you need the right people around you to actually show that you are going wrong in certain areas. And it does take a sense of maturity to, I guess, accept the fact that you aren't perfect in general. And I mean, it's nice to know that if you have certain defects, that there is always a scope of improvement. You can be a better version of yourself. And that is always nice to know. That's comforting to know, sir.
Yeah, that's exactly what happens in AFPA, because people who are giving you this feedback, first of all, you have come to learn
Yes, sir.
so that you succeed.
Yes, sir.
And we, having been assessors, you have that faith in us ki, whatever they say, it must be really meaning something. That's why they're saying so. And looking at our age and maturity level, seniority, so there is a acceptance. Yeah, I think if they are saying this, then I need to really work on this, or
Yes,
you become conscious, you accept it. That acceptance happens naturally because of our, our past, our background, as well as our age. And the second benefit that happens is, unlike many other places here, you all stay together within the campus in the hostel, so you have that advantage of, peer learning.
exactly, sir.
That's what I always tell you guys, that whenever you have free time, don't really while away your time. That is in the second week, particularly when the assessment is happening, you all should spend that time to sit in the discussion room and discuss. Take a random topic. I also share a list of topics which
Yes,
you
sir.
can discuss on your own. While we put you through a certain number of discussions, six of them, eight of them, whatever. But there is always, and once you go out of this place, you are not going to get these people with whom we can
Exactly,
sit
sir.
and discuss. So, see, ultimately, if anybody follows what is being told religiously, things will happen. It's not a rocket science. It's not something very difficult.
That's exactly what I agree, sir.
It is just that understanding where you are lacking and working consciously on that, taking help from friends, using your time wisely, and go ahead and build up your knowledge, communication.
Yes, sir.
So that's not going to be very difficult for anybody for that matter, unless he has
Exactly,
some
sir.
major kink.
And not just that, sir. I mean, the fact that, at least, I mean, that's where I would give undue credit to Afpa, where the efforts by you and Colonel Kamath, sir, who was my mentor during my stay at Afpa, I felt that your contribution was immense in a way of, as I said, it was more of showing us where our negatives were, rather than, boosting our ego or saying that this is good in you, this is good in you. It was more of showing where we were going wrong also in a way. But also, as I said, our glimmers of, we were shown glimmers of our positives. So it was, and it was not just that, it was also the fact that we had on-ground experiences at AFPA which genuinely helped. Because certain times, learning concepts online probably does make a difference, but applying them on ground is also another art, I would say. It's
Yeah,
a different ballgame.
that too in a group task.
Exactly.
So fair enough, and that I always say on the opening briefing day itself, that this program is based on feedback, and we are more interested in giving you negative feedback than positive. We
Yes.
underplay the positives and we overplay the negatives so that you become conscious and
Yes.
you start working on that, and that's how perhaps we are achieving. I mean, our students are achieving the results that they are achieving. That's wonderful, Siddharth. So this time, the final fourth attempt, when you went there, I'm sure you would have been far more confident about your performance.
Exactly.
So, if you take on the interview, any space in the interview where you felt that you got cornered or you're not able to handle things properly?
Fortunately, not, sir, for this interview. The personal interviewing officer, I feel he was the one who gave me the highest marks in general. So I would say I was not cornered, but he tried to corner me in the sense he asked me certain questions like, name the Western African and Eastern African countries and the political status in each and every one of them. Then he also asked me the relevancy of the United Nations in the current world in a way that he wouldn't know, by giving examples that he wouldn't know. So I spoke about the South Sudan mission of the United Nations. Then he also asked me about my suggestions or my thoughts about Tipu Sultan. And I openly, I mean, I didn't want to lie. So I told the actual things that he's being cancelled by our society today because of his past being surfaced, about him being a big rapist and other things in general. So in general, I wouldn't say he tried to corner me. He tried to, I feel, um, in the sense, take for example, another question he asked me, what is my wavelength of friends? So then
What
he
is
asked me,
what
what is my
is
wavelength? What is the wavelength of friends that I have? In the sense, what are the
well,
qualities that I look in my friends? Then he asked me, is everybody my friend? Then he asked me, then I said, sir, then I told that we both know I would be lying if I said everybody was my friend. And he started laughing. And then he said that, okay, so why isn't everybody a friend? So he kept on trying to, corner me in certain situations. But fortunately, I handled it in a way that I guess it did work. Because at the end of the interview, the deputy president said that he wanted me to clear the interview this time. And so that's why I feel he gave me the highest marks. And that's why my score is 434. He said that he feels he wants me to clear the SSB this time because he had a wonderful interview and said he'd give me tips for the GTO for the next 2 days. and said that he wanted me to clear it this attempt and not fail again. So I feel, sir, again, where I would say my suggestion as a person who has had quite a few attempts in the SSB, that every answer that at least consciously what I try to do is every answer that I gave, I try to portray some quality or the other of mine. I try to give some spine to every answer that I had. Take, for example, the irrelevancy of the United Nations. I try to show that I was observational in some areas. I try to collect information from every space that I could. And also I was critical in, in the involved parties of in the irrelevancy of the United Nations. So I feel, you giving observational answers and showing, that you have certain qualities or portray certain qualities in each and every answer that you give does play a long role in the kind of questions that he will subsequently ask. Because if you answer in a very blunt or in a very blunt manner in general, the interview becomes boring, I would say, because I have quite a few people who I know who I feel sit ramrod straight like this, absolutely no emotions on their face, and just give dead answers, which I don't think goes a long way in the SSB. So I try
But
to.
there is a word of caution in what you're saying.
Yes, sir.
I don't want others to try this because everybody may not be able to handle it the way you can handle, because you had one, there are two good things about you: was very fluent, good vocabulary and confident. Okay, not everybody is like that. And particularly when you are answering the CIQs, the comprehensive interview questionnaires, which you all call as rapid fire. If there are so many questions to answer, and if you go on elaborating and, speaking with, a lot of content, the chances of you forgetting the sequence is very much.
Makes sense.
So when it comes to CIQ, one should be to the point, not be very verbose, to
Right,
the
sir.
point, and thereafter, whenever, obviously he may ask you more questions based on what you replied. Then those questions are going to come as single questions.
Right, sir.
So you can justify, and you can talk a little more to add value. That is the good thing to do, right? So not everybody may be as capable to handle. It's not. So they should not wrongly follow what
Yes.
you're saying. It is not
Yes, sir.
for
Yes.
everybody's cup of tea to handle this, right? And how about your psych? How are you doing in AFPA? What was the feedback you got? And
The feedback given to me was pretty more average. I was Ashok sir and Tarun sir both said that I had, I guess the scope was there to improve, but at that time at Afpa it wasn't, I would say, satisfactory to what I guess they wanted. So I came back home. I had 1.5 weeks before my SSB. So I came back home and I tried to actually read through the pages or the stories that I'd written and try to see where I could, bring in a different angle into each story. Try to be a lot more practical in nature. Try to be more, it shouldn't be the same rigmarole stories that everybody writes. I felt I had to be slightly different in my own ways. Because take for example, sir, I mean, I just to paint a picture of one kind of picture that was given, which I thought I wrote something different. So there's a car, like from your side, there's a car coming from this side, and there's a man who's crossing, who has fallen on the road, and there's another man on the, on the sidewalk who is looking quite, let's say, scared in general. So I wrote a story based on, a story where I made the driver the hero rather than the guy who's fallen. So I wrote that, he's driving, he's going to work. And then suddenly he sees two people run across and just, rashly cross the road. Immediately presses the brake and, the car stalls. And the person who was crossing falls on the road. He immediately asks him why he was crossing so foolishly. To which he replied that he had to get medicines quickly for his mother in the hospital. And then because he was very frantic about his mother's health, both the brothers felt very frantic about their mother's health. So the hero realized that the situation was not great for both of them, that they weren't mentally present in general. So he offered them a drop to the hospital and then, got them whatever medicines they required and then went to work. So I tried to write something wherever I could, in a different way, in whatever I could, because I didn't want to write the same rigmarole things that others wrote.
so, I'm sure, by the time any candidate, when he is in AFPA, he completes the second TAT, second psych test. By far, he'll be okay as far as the SRT and the WAT is concerned. But TAT will still remain a gray area which he needs to build up after going back home and, putting in some amount of effort. So if somebody sincerely does it, and the way we tell you to do, if you follow that, that's not something very difficult to handle. It's abstract technique. There are nobody disturbing you. There are no interruptions from anywhere. You just need to collect your thoughts and write a
Yes.
decent story. So that happens automatically with a little bit of effort after finishing with Afpa. Now let's come to the GTO technique.
Yes, sir.
You're not any great when we did the first PGT.
No, sir.
You are more of talking, less of working, right?
Yes.
So how was your performance in the second week? Did you see any, did you understand the concept and could you really implement it in the second week of AFPA where the assessment happens? And what was your feedback at the end of it from Kamath sir?
Yes, sir. As I said, sir, reiterating to what I spoke in the beginning, that it was a group activity in AFPA for each of us to improve in general. So it was all of us, most of my, so I was in the Ganga block. So it was most of my roommates or the people, the adjacent rooms who helped me, who recognized, first of all, that I was very weak in the PGT and who helped me in improving certain areas by showing me some other ways and by showing what you had told during the classes. So just right, they helped me to implement it in general. So as you said, sir, in the first week, I was more of only constantly talking without any actual effort on ground. So that's what they recognize as well. And they said that I do have certain potential if I actually was good on ground, that there could be something that could be, that I could be better in the PGT or the officers would perceive me better in the PGT because if I speak and do work at the same time. So the second week, so I tried to put as much effort as I could. I tried each and every command task, the command task, the playground that was there for the command task, the PGT grounds that were there. So I tried to put as much as effort as I could to find as many routes as I could for each and everything. The most ridiculous routes also I did not mind it. I just tried to find something or the other that would help. So luckily, that did transcend into the second week. During Colonel Kamath's assessment, I was at the forefront. I was at the front of the group. I led the group. I did not give great ideas, but I gave ideas for the simpler ones and the slightly moderately hard ones. But the harder ones, I did more or less labor work. It was more or less me just implementing what others told. And it more or less, I realized that being present in the situation by, identifying whether everybody's following color rules or in general, the rules posed by the officer. So I tried to take on that role as well, which did, go a long way. And Colonel Kamath sir also, he identified that I was at the front, that I did take the initiative to break that shackle and go in the front in the beginning itself. And but it was not a lot of, ideas were not fluent in my PGT, but some ideas were there. In the sense, the beginning parts and the end part was my idea. The harder one, which was the seesaw one, wasn't my idea. In the sense, I more or less just went and tied things. So again, I guess my suggestion or the feedback that sir gave was to carry on the same thing into my SSB and to be a little more present during the harder task, to be a little more, actually speak something at least to show that you are actually trying to use your brain during the harder task rather than just taking on the role of a lesser one during the PGT. So I tried that and it did work during my PGT. I spoke something, some suggestion I gave during the harder one. And again, so I think the toughest part of me to improve during the PGT was for me to go into the front. Because during my TS and my 147, I was so shy that I just stood in the back and just kept my hands in the back, doing absolutely nothing. So I used Afpa as an opportunity for me to, just forget about what others would think. Irrespective of how stupid my ideas were, I just decided to just go in the forefront and just try to lead wherever I could to see whether that would suit me rather than just giving more ideas. Would it suit me to lead to the front, give confidence to others in general, motivate others, keep the ambience around positive is at least what I tried to do. And so at the end of the day, the feedback given by Colonel Kamath sir was I was average during my PGT. There was a lot of scope that was there into the harder task, but he was impressed by the improvement that was there from absolutely nothing to at least leading in the front during the assessment, sir.
Yeah, that's okay. But when you actually went for the SSB, how was your performance there? I mean, were you may have stayed in the front, that's okay. But were you able to conceive the idea in the difficult structures, the third one
Yes.
particularly?
Yes, sir.
You're
And
getting
that's where, again, I would give, again, as I said, credit to Afpa, where I feel that it is more or less a simulation at Afpa. It is more or less a copy paste of what happens in the SSB, or I would say harder during Afpa because everybody there is equally motivated, everybody there is equally smart during Afpa. So it is, if you do well in Afpa, I feel you will obviously excel during the actual SSB. So during the actual SSB, I felt, although it was not great during AFPA, things were coming very fluent for me during the PGT. I don't know how. It was just coming fluently, the ideas. I myself was starstruck as to how I was getting the ideas, how I could actually visualize things and apply certain rules that you were told. So in the harder task, I did give a slight idea, or more or less, I created the foundation for the final solution. And it was majority of because our 33 SSB tasks weren't simple. At Bhopal, the Navy board PGT wasn't very easy. So right from the get-go, our things were a little, I mean, other than the first one, from PGT2 to PGT4, it was more or less hard. So I gave majority of the ideas, and I guess more or less I wouldn't say I motivated them, but I kept the ambience positive, and I tried to just keep the environment positive in general. So I would say that AFPA did help big time in the actual SSB because it was more or less a simulation of what happened in the SSB. I would say it was a copy paste.
okay, Siddharth. Uh, I mean, you seem to have done well in all the three techniques, and that's good. So after everything was over, it was the turn of your conference. How long did you have to wait outside?
About a minute or so, sir.
And you were immediately called in.
Yes.
Any questions, any situations, any questions asked during the
Yes.
conference?
A very bamboozling question. He asked me, since my name is Siddharth, he asked me what qualities of me do I feel is the same as the Lord Gautam Buddha. So there are two routes I could take. I could either be humble and say I can't compare myself to God, or the other route I could take is go in and just actually give few qualities. So I gave two qualities. One was that I had the power to make my own opinions without being influenced by others, considering the fact that Gautam Buddha made his own opinions about his own, I guess, acceptance of religion and everything. And the other is influencing power of Gautam Buddha, where he could influence his community without actually forcing it on others, where he could actually get in others. So I said these words, and that's it. More or less, it was. He asked me to rate my group. So so he asked me who would I put the first in my group. I was pretty close to saying myself, but I told chess number two as number one, and I put myself in number two. He also asked me to justify why I put chess number one in number one position. So I said he was very calm and cool during his command task, during the group discussion, during his progressive group task. Everything I felt he was smooth sailing. He was present. He wasn't the one that, the sense everybody liked him in general in the group. So that's why I put him number one, and then that's it. They said thank you, and then I left.
Great. So after the conference was over, you must be waiting for the results.
Oh, it was a
So
long wait.
how many were screened in your batch? How many had reported? How many got?
I think 90 something had reported, and 38 of us were screened in, sir.
Oh, that's a good number. Okay, and how many got conferenced in?
13 of us were recommended, sir.
13. Okay, that's wonderful. So that's a good batch, I must say.
Yes, sir.
Fair enough. So when your number was called this time, the fourth time, how did you feel?
It was. I'm actually getting kind of goosebumps right now. So it's a feeling unparalleled. It isn't something that you can speak in general.
Great sense of achievement.
Yes, sir. I got first in the sense one after one, everybody's chess number was being called. So I thought, is the whole batch being recommended? My chess number was called the second last. So finally, the second last chess number, he said 1010. So I looked at the officer and he's 1010. So I got up and I said, Siddharth Atmaram, I kind of few tears did flow down. And then he's like, okay, what? Why are you standing here? I said, sir, you called my chess number. Then he said, okay, you can leave now. So that was it. So it was more than actually the chess number being called out. I feel it was the absolute satisfaction of calling my parents and saying recommended was the better feeling.
But tell me, Siddharth, your father is a civil engineer, mother is a teacher in a school.
Yes, sir.
How did this, sudden thought of, military? I mean, and you are the only son, I suppose, or you
Yes,
have?
sir. I have a younger sister.
You have a younger sister. Your parents didn't object to this kind of profession
No,
or
sir.
anything? No?
Nothing. They were the most supportive.
Great. They must have felt very happy after hearing from you that you got recommended
Yes,
this
sir.
time.
Yes,
So
sir.
that's wonderful. So your medicals are done now?
Yes, sir. I'm currently medically unfit, waiting for my review medical board call. Hopefully, God's grace, it comes.
What is the issue?
Eyesight, sir.
No, but what is your second choice?
I'm unfit for all. Army, Navy, and Air Force. I'm unfit for everything right now.
Oh, so sad. How much is your power?
2.75 and 2.75.
2.75 and 2.75,
Yes, sir.
both eyes. So up to 2.5, Army would have accepted you, but definitely Navy is out of question.
Yes, sir.
But 2.5, Army would have accepted you. So I don't know.
I mean, sir, I would also take it in a way. I would say, how would I say it? I mean, I wouldn't say I'm happy that I'm unfit, but I'd rather join the Navy rather than joining Army and going to NDA. Because Navy has always been my end goal. So
But you would have known from the notification itself that the eyesight requirement is all mentioned in the notification itself.
thing is that, sir, I was also under the impression that they would calculate the power by taking the complete spherical power and half of the cylindrical power. But the people at the military establishment, the military hospitals, combine both without any, they just add both of them completely, and that's why I'm unfit, sir.
Anyway, I mean, worst case scenario, I'm saying, though you're already recommended, what to do, how to do, etc.
Yes, sir.
And once you reach the age of 20, you can go through LASIK and come back.
Yes, sir.
I'm sure you'll find acceptance, if not now, later. With LASIK is permitted. It should be 1 year old. So when you reach the age of 20, you can get your LASIK done.
Yes, sir.
And the LASIK should be 1 year old and the power should not relapse. I mean, you should
Get
not
back
have
to
relapse of
exactly.
the, yeah.
Yes, sir.
So if these two conditions generally get fulfilled, there's no problem. So you do that. So I'm sure you will still find yourself. Even the Air Force, even for the flying branch, LASIK is permitted.
So that's it. That's a redemption.
Right. So anyway, that would be sad. I mean, after going through all this, so did you take any break in between, a 1 year drop or something?
No, sir.
You're pursuing your graduation or?
Yes, sir. I'm currently doing my engineering. I finished my first semester. My second semester has just started.
Great. Okay. Uh, on behalf of all the faculties and everybody in Afpa, I wish you all the very best for the RMB first.
Yes, sir.
And we pray, hope and pray that they measure it the right way and perhaps they accept you. And but I tell you, don't be fixated that I'll go only into the Navy. If you get Army, I think you should not hesitate to join the Army. See, it's all about uniform. It's all about the pride associated with uniform. It's all about serving the nation honestly, sincerely. And today the kind of turmoil we see in this country, the country needs good people to
Right.
safeguard the territorial integrity and sovereignty of this nation, right? So, thank you so much, Siddharth, for talking to me. And once again, on behalf of all the faculty members and everyone, wish you all the very best. And to convey our regards to your parents also.
Yes, sir.
May God be with you in all that you do in the future. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir.
And before you wind up, maybe one message to the aspiring defense candidates.
Sure, sir. I mean, where do I start? I feel, I keep saying this to a few people that, find that reason that keeps you awake all night, dreaming to join the forces. Once you identify that reason, you will, the qualities that you have will fluently come. So the reason why you want to join is, I feel, the most important. The qualities that resides within you, is basically just a subsequent nature to what your goal is. I feel strive hard, put constant effort, and make sure that you as a person is always on an upward graph rather than stagnant or downwards. Irrespective of whatever field or whatever your goal is in nature, I feel constant improvement or the yearn to improve is what makes us, is what I feel drives us as a civilization in general. And if we stop doing that, then it's not a great sign, sir.
Yeah, good. What you said, I appreciate. Excellent. Thank you, Siddharth. It was
Thank you,
wonderful
sir.
talking to you, and may God bless you.
Thanks, sir.
Bye. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.